Hey folks, it's Tommy Z back with you again, and today I want to talk about how to make better decisions, how to hone your gut feel, gut instinct as a creative craftsperson so that you can be better at work and better at life. And this lesson is inspired by a lecture I gave recently to my alma mater, York University in Toronto, where I spoke to a group of students in a music entrepreneurship program and basically told them my story of how I went from being a guy who worked at a major corporation. I was a banker on Bay Street, safe, cushy, comfortable corporate day job. And I made the big decision to actually switch paths completely in my early 20s and become a creative craftsperson, a music producer, making music for big brands. And I've been doing that for 15 years now. So that was one of the first major decisions that I made as a human being, to change paths and to put myself on a path where I felt I was closer to my calling. There were many other major decisions that followed. And one of the bright young women in the class asked me, how do we get better at these decisions? How can we trust ourselves to make better decisions, to hone this thing called gut feeling, so that we can maximize our chances of making good decisions, especially when they're big, risky, uncertain decisions, okay? So that's what I want to talk to you about today. And I'm going to take you to my whiteboard of wisdom and knowledge so I seem more credible when I write things down. So this is what I told the student, okay? Number one, you are what you eat. I'm sure you heard this expression before. You are what you eat. And I'm going to explain this in a second. The second thing I told her is journal. And the third thing I told her is action. Let me explain these three things. Number one, who we are as human beings is the things that we experience, the things that we go through, the things that we consume. I'm not just talking about food, although it's true for food that if you eat good food, you're going to have a sharper mind, a healthier body. The kind of person that you are is because of all the experiences you've ever had, all of the people that you've chosen to hang around with, all the books you chose to read, all the music you chose to listen to. This is really what sets the bar for us. So the better people that you hang out with, the better books you read, the better films you watch, the better music you listen to, the better craftsperson you're going to become. Your sensibility is going to be elevated. Notice how everybody talks about using their gut feeling, their gut instinct when they make decisions. So why is it then that some people elevate themselves to the top of their industry, whether it's dentists, architects, lawyers, artists? And on the other side, you have people saying, I use my gut feeling too. I use my gut instinct. I always follow my gut. But yet they don't get anywhere. Their life and their work is a series of unfinished projects, and you wouldn't put your money on them because you don't trust them. They trust their gut instinct, but they probably don't have a good reason to trust their gut instinct. So the first thing I said to her is, you are what you eat, okay? The things that you consume are going to be the things that determine what kind of a human being you are, what kind of a craftsperson you are, okay? The most powerful word I want you to remember here is choice, okay? We live now in a world which is pretty crazy. We have algorithms that feed you things you love, and you can't get away from your screens, okay? And a lot of times these are mindless, shallow, entertaining things, but they don't actually nourish you in any constructive way. Okay, so don't be surprised if you keep eating shallowy, sugary stuff. Your gut instinct is going to degrade over time. It's going to get worse and worse. Why? Because you're not feeding on nourishing stuff. It's very difficult today to resist the algorithms, but the ultimate truth is that you do have a choice in what you're going to consume. So instead of eating sugar, shallow stuff, go for substantial stuff, okay? That way you will raise your sensibility, you will raise your ability to evaluate things, you will raise your taste, which is very important. As a craftsperson, as a creative, as a musician, your taste should be at the highest level. You should be following heroes in the highest places. That's the only way to get better. The question is not, do we follow? The question is, who do we follow? So choose to follow good folks, good human beings, and the work that they do. And I promise you that you will naturally start wanting to elevate yourself to that level. So that's number one. Number two, so we can actually call this, let's say, consumption. Number one is consumption, okay? And the key word here is choice, and you are what you eat is what I want you to remember. The second thing that I mentioned to her is journaling, and we can call this also contemplation. It's not enough that you consume stuff, okay? Just like when you eat food, you need time to digest the food. The food has to assimilate itself into your body so that it can absorb the nutrients. It's the same with consumption of content. It's the same with reading books. It's the same with watching films, listening to music. You need time to develop a deeper understanding of what it is you're listening to, of the conversation that you might have had with your friend. We don't take time to do this today. It's like consuming one thing, then moving on to the next thing. Netflix, HBO already show you the next recommended show before you even have a chance to let the previous show sink in. So we don't contemplate nearly enough, which means we don't understand our relationship to the things that we're consuming. And more importantly, we don't even understand ourselves. Okay? So journaling is a way to have a conversation with yourself so that you can understand your relation to the things that you're consuming, your relation to other people and to other things. And the better you understand yourself, the better you will be able to observe certain patterns. And the better you're able to observe certain patterns, the more you can trust your gut instincts to help you make the right decision. Think about people who are running around constantly. They never have a chance to have a conversation with themselves. And here they are saying, I trust my gut. Would you honestly put your money on these folks? Because I wouldn't, okay? I would put my money on someone who is able to carve out some space in this noisy, distracted world to get in touch with themselves, to understand themselves, to make to record the events, the things, the conversations, the content that they've consumed in their journal, and then form an opinion about it. And what's more, when you carve out time to contemplate, to get in touch with yourself, to connect with your deeper self, you are now building authorship. You are now building willpower. You are now building your own distinct vision that might eventually turn into contribution. Unless you carve out this time for yourself to contemplate, to form your sense of self in this distracted world, I bet you're always going to be running around after consumption, after the things that are happening in the world. You're constantly going to be reacting to this stimuli instead of forming your own vision, which will give you a chance eventually to contribute something of your own, okay? Which brings me to the next point, action, or what we can say creation. So we have 3 C's. We have consumption, we have contemplation, and we have creation. So when you consume stuff, because, we can't help to consume stuff, folks. I mean, everybody consumes stuff. It's not a matter of are you going to consume? It's a matter of are you going to consume good stuff, right? When you consume stuff, when you contemplate about it, the next step is to actually create. Okay, why do I say this? And what does it have to do with honing your gut instinct and making good decisions? It's because if we are always stuck in this cycle of creation and contemplation, but we never do anything, we actually have no real track record. We actually don't produce anything. We actually don't have any momentum. We actually have no basis to make any more decisions or to record any data because we actually haven't done anything. So the third step that is necessary is actually creation, okay? Not just consumption, not just contemplation, but all 3 things. And I would argue that the more you're able to balance properly these 3 C's of consumption, of contemplation, and of creation, the more likely that you'll be able to trust your gut instinct, because you will be consuming things at the highest level, which will make you a better craftsperson because your taste is going to be elevated. Your sense of what is great and what isn't so great is also going to be sharper, right? It will refine your instinct. Your contemplation will allow you to add your own individuality, your own unique voice to the mix. That's what you're going to develop. And number 3, creation is actually going to test, how good is your taste versus your skill? Is what you're saying, your unique voice, is it resonating with the world? And then you're going to be able to adjust or pivot once you actually put something out there. But you cannot figure everything out in your head. So notice how if any of these C's are out of balance, we don't have an ideal situation. So a lot of people today are basically in between these two cycles, okay, of consumption and creation. They don't contemplate enough. So what happens then? If you're moving constantly between watching YouTube videos and then making YouTube videos without actually sitting down, carving out a bit of time to think about what you're going to do, think about why you want to do it, you're very likely to follow. I would argue that very likely your work is going to be unoriginal because you haven't taken the time to contemplate, to develop your own voice. What happens if you're only in these two C's? So you're constantly consuming other people's work and then you're constantly contemplating. You're thinking about putting out your own stuff or what you're going to do, but you never actually pull the trigger, right? What happens here is eventually frustration because you have no momentum. You want to do something, but you're unsure. You're constantly hesitating to pull the trigger. And eventually that's going to cause frustration. And you know what? You might get so discouraged because of your lack of momentum that you're going to abandon your project altogether. And we certainly don't want that, right? And then we have the final combination, which is contemplation and creation. And I believe the greatest works of art were created because of these two things, because of contemplation and creation and not too much consumption. Notice how the works that endure until today still, the timeless works of the masters, were created at a time when a lot of these masters lived in solitude. They had plenty of time to contemplate. There was no mass media, there was no algorithms, and so they were able to develop a deep internal life, okay? And then they applied this fascination, this wonder with the world to their work. And this is, I believe, why some of these masterpieces of art have been timeless and universal. And they still live today, whereas the things that the majority of what we call artists, but I call them entertainers, are producing today are quite shallow. They're just meant to tickle your senses, but they don't actually penetrate deep down into your soul, okay? So 3 C's, folks: consumption, contemplation, creation, in a more or less equal balance. Remember that C also stands for choice. You are what you eat, so eat well. Make sure you spend some time to journal, to understand what's happening in your life, how you feel about it, and what unique contribution you want to make. And finally, don't just contemplate, folks. Actually do something. And once you do something, I promise it will have a life of its own and you will know what the next step is, whether to continue this way or maybe try something new. All right, folks? I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that this inspires you in some way, right? To think about how to use this to improve your gut instinct, to get better as a creative craftsperson or as a human being in general. If you have any questions, ask them below. If you have any comments, please comment below. Consider subscribing, telling your friends about the channel. I would really appreciate it. I'm Tommy Z, and I'll see you in the next video.